All right, everyone, today we're going to dive deep, and I mean deep, into one of the all-time great American novels, Herman Melville's Moby Dick. So whether this is your first time setting sail with this story, or you're back for another look, this review will help you get a handle on its massive themes and really memorable characters.
Right out of the gate, Melville drops this clue that something isn't quite right. On the surface, the whaling ship, the Pequod, seems to be on a totally normal business trip. But we quickly learn there's a much darker, much more personal mission churning just beneath the surface. This isn't about money. It's about revenge. So, how does this all get started? Well, like a lot of great adventures, it begins with someone who's just tired of being on land. Our narrator, a guy named Ishmael, signs up for a job on the whaling ship Pequod, and he has absolutely no idea that he's just enlisted in one man's personal war. The ship is this incredible melting pot. The crew is from all over the world. But pretty soon, they all start to figure out that the mission they signed up for has been completely hijacked. They're not just whalers anymore. They're basically just tools in their captain's obsessive and very dangerous game. And that brings us to the real human drama at the center of the book. See, this isn't just about a guy hunting a whale. It's really a clash between two totally opposite ways of looking at the world. And it's all embodied in two key characters. So let's meet the main crew. First, you've got Captain Ahab. He's the driving force of this whole thing, totally and tragically obsessed. Pushing back against him is Starbuck, the first mate, who is pretty much the only voice of reason on the whole ship. We see all this unfold through the eyes of Ishmael, our narrator. And then there's Queequeg, a harpooner, whose deep friendship with Ishmael shows us a kind of humanity that goes way beyond culture or background. Okay, this contrast is absolutely crucial. For Ahab, that whale isn't just an animal. No way. It's the living, breathing symbol of everything wrong and evil in the universe, and he has to destroy it. Starbuck, on the other hand, looks at the whale and sees, well, a whale. A dangerous animal for sure, but still just an animal. He's trying to do his job and keep his crew safe, putting him in direct conflict with Ahab's crazy, all-consuming rage.
So this begs the question, right? If the whale isn't just a whale to Captain Ahab, then what in the world is it? To really get this book, we've got to look past the giant sea creature and see the even bigger symbols swimming right below the surface.
All right, just a quick classroom refresher here. A symbol is basically when a physical object, like say a giant white whale, is used to represent a really big abstract idea, like nature or God or evil. And trust me, Moby Dick is one of the most famous and complex symbols in all of literature.
So what does the whale actually mean? Well, the genius here is that there's no single answer. To some people, Moby Dick represents nature itself, unstoppable and totally indifferent to humans. To others, maybe it's God, or the complete opposite, a symbol that the universe is just empty and meaningless. To Ahab, the whale is like a physical wall he can attack, representing everything in the world that frustrates and angers him. The key takeaway? The whale is like a giant mirror. Its meaning changes depending on who's looking at it.
And it's not just the whale. Look at Ahab's leg. It's a prosthesis, carved from a whale's jawbone. It's not just there to help him walk. Every single set he takes is a constant, painful physical reminder of Moby Dick, and it just fuels that fire of his obsession.
Okay, let's zoom out a little. This whole obsessive hunt isn't happening in a fantasy world. The story is tied to a very specific time and place, and Melville uses it to ask some of the biggest questions you can think of.
You have to remember, this book came out in 1851. Back then, the American whaling industry was huge. It was kind of like the oil industry of its day. The ocean was this wild frontier where you could make a fortune, but it was also incredibly dangerous. That real-world backdrop of risk and reward is what makes the whole story feel so gritty and real.
And Melville uses that setting to explore these massive themes. You've got that central conflict, Ahab's obsession versus Starbuck's reason. You've got the timeless story of humans trying to control nature, and the book is constantly asking, are these guys making their own choices, or was their path decided for them from the start? And woven through it all is Ishmael, who's just trying to figure out what any of it means.
So, you put all these forces together on one ship. Ahab's obsession, the raw power of nature, big questions about fate, and you just know this whole thing is speeding towards a tragic and completely unforgettable ending. After months and months of searching, they finally find him. The chase lasts for 3 brutal days, and honestly, it feels less like a hunt and more like a battle against the universe itself. In the end, Ahab throws his last harpoon, but the rope wraps around his neck and he gets yanked into the ocean,
literally tied to the monster he dedicated his life to destroying. The whale then turns on the ship, and the Pequod, with its entire crew, sinks into the sea.
Everyone is gone. Well, almost everyone. The only person to survive is our narrator, Ishmael. And how does he survive? By clinging to a coffin that his friend Queequeg had made earlier. He's just left floating alone in the middle of this vast, empty ocean. The only one left to tell the story. I mean, what an image. Life literally floating on top of a symbol of death.
So, Ishmael lives to tell the tale. But even though his story has an ending, the questions the book brings up are still out there. So now, it's your turn. Let's think about a couple of the big ones this novel leaves us to wrestle with.
First up, this whole idea of man versus nature. I mean, Ahab threw everything he had at the natural world, and he failed in the most spectacular way possible. So, does the book suggest that any attempt to conquer nature is just pointless? That we're doomed to fail? Or is there another way to look at our relationship with the planet?
And for the second one, let's talk about fate versus free will. Was Ahab just a guy who made one bad choice after another, leading to his own destruction? Or, with all the prophecies and strange omens in the book, was he just a pawn in a game that was already decided? You know, was his fate sealed the moment that whale first took his leg?
In the end, the novel leaves us with his really powerful warning, one that perfectly captures Ahab's story. Sometimes the things we chase are the very things that will consume us. Moby Dick is so much more than an old adventure story. It's this incredible look at obsession, our place in the universe, and the terrifying power of the things we just don't understand. Thanks for joining this review.